In August of 2024, Canadian woman Jessica Kane, aged 32, was sentenced to 2 years of probation after being accused of multiple crimes going back to 2021. Kane had been working as an escort since her mid-teens, and the sprawling case against her included 1 count of manslaughter, 7 counts of administering a stupefying or overpowering drug or substance, 6 counts of theft over $5,000, 1 count of theft for fraud, and 2 of extortion. The charges stemmed from repeated instances of her drugging and robbing her clients. One of the men in question, Dustin Lefebvre, died after soliciting her services. He was a successful businessman who ran his own plumbing company. By February of 2021, he was dealing with the sudden departure of his 2 young sons after their mother had unexpectedly taken them back to Ukraine. Kane and another escort went to the man's Surrey home on the night of February the 25th. At some point during the rendezvous, the women allegedly drugged Lefebvre. He passed out and never woke up as he succumbed to heart failure. Kane and the other woman called 911 before making off with Lefebvre's wallet, phone, and iPad. The MO was in line with other robberies perpetrated by Kane, who, after her clients became unconscious, stole cash from them, in addition to using their phones and bank cards to make cash withdrawals, money transfers, or purchases. Her activity unfolded in Surrey, Burnaby, Langley, and Vancouver. When law enforcement searched the Surrey home that was linked to her, they found cocaine, benzodiazepines, unknown white and blue pills, and a large bag of gelatin capsules. They also recovered nearly $50,000 in cash, prepaid Visa gift cards, high-end clothing items with receipts, identification in other people's names, 5 cell phones, and a taser. Following Kane's arrest and leading up to her 2024 sentencing, she'd spent 23 months in custody. She adamantly denied drugging her clients and eventually pleaded guilty to theft charges involving 6 of her victims. In exchange for her plea, she was given probation while the manslaughter charge and the others were stayed. Kane's lawyers pointed out that the woman had no criminal record and also highlighted egregious conduct by the police during the investigation, which reportedly saw 20 breaches of Kane's charter rights. The escort avoided spending any more time behind bars, much to the shock and disappointment of Lefebvre's family. Less than 5 months after she walked free, Kane was arrested in Ontario. The woman had reportedly been advertising her services on social media after relocating to the area. On January the 19th of 2025, a man contacted her, seeking to arrange an intimate encounter in Vaughan, north of Toronto. Kane and an accomplice, Manan Kana, met up with the man and robbed him. He was held at knife point and forced to make withdrawals from multiple ATMs. The pair were arrested and charged with armed robbery and forcible confinement. Kane additionally faced 3 counts of breach of probation, and as of the latest updates on her case, she remained in custody. Number 7. Haleigh Maynard. On March the 26th of 2015, a Michigan woman was walking her dog when she found a wallet belonging to her neighbor, 71-year-old Gary Schneider, outside his home in Ypsilanti. The woman tried to return the wallet, but Schneider didn't answer. The woman contacted his next-door neighbor, and suspicions arose when they found that his home was unlocked, while his car was still at the address. The police were called. Officers entered the residence and found Schneider dead in a pool of blood after he'd been stabbed dozens of times. During the investigation that followed, detectives determined that Schneider had seen a 23-year-old escort named Haleigh Maynard in the lead-up to his death. She became the primary suspect in his murder. Her fingerprints were found throughout Schneider's home, and her footprints were found in his blood. Maynard was charged with his murder in August of 2015, and she gave detectives a full confession. Maynard said that she met the elderly man on the street while she was working as an escort to support her cocaine addiction. They reconnected on Backpage.com and developed a dominant submissive routine. When they met up, Maynard would undress and step on a scale. Schneider would then spank her 10 times for every pound she'd gained since their previous encounter. Maynard would reportedly charge Schneider $35, 5 less than her going rate for the session. When she went to Schneider's home in March of 2015, she'd gained 10 pounds since he'd last seen her. As per their arrangement, Schneider struck her first with a belt and then with a stick. After 20 to 25 hits, Maynard asked for a break. She told detectives that she began getting angry after the spanking brought back flashbacks of childhood abuse. The escort reported that she'd used cocaine earlier in the day, adding that she and Schneider had also smoked marijuana and drank alcohol during the meetup. After asking for a break, Maynard went to the kitchen to get a drink, but Schneider followed her and reportedly started playfully swatting her again. The woman warned him to stop, but he persisted and taunted her by saying, "Oh, is this making you angry?" Maynard claimed that she blacked out in a fit of rage. She grabbed a knife and stabbed Schneider when his back was turned. The escort told detectives that by the time she realized what she was doing, she felt it was too late to stop. She knifed Schneider 50 times, with 48 of the strikes landing on his head and neck. Maynard fled the home with his wallet but dropped it in the street, where the neighbor later found it. In November of 2016, under a deal with prosecutors, Maynard pleaded no contest to second-degree murder. In January of the following year, she was sentenced to 25 to 50 years behind bars with credit for 503 days already served. Number 6. Ashleigh Garlit. In May of 2019, Tennessee woman Ashleigh Garlit attacked another woman after the latter had reportedly stolen her date. According to the authorities, 24-year-old Garlit and the victim, only described as being in her 30s, were both working as escorts in the Nashville area. Garlit flew into a fit of rage after the other woman drove away from a Murfreesboro Pike gas station with a man who was supposed to be her client. Garlit had been previously convicted for escort activities and also had her license revoked in late 2017. She nevertheless pursued the pair in her own car. Garlit ran her rival off the road and then jumped out of her vehicle. The other woman tried to run away but fell, at which point Garlit charged her. Garlit tried to strangle her before she stuck a needle in her arm and injected her with an unknown substance. Garlit told her rival, "You're going to die," and the woman later reported that she felt an instant burning sensation in her limb upon being injected. She was treated at Summit Hospital, and Garlit was arrested for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and received 2 citations for failure to be booked. She was jailed on a $27,000 bond. The escort's past run-ins with the law included convictions for criminal trespassing, disorderly conduct, indecent exposure, felony theft, and unlawful use of drug paraphernalia. Number 5. David Marsh in Operation Naughty Not Nice. From December the 9th to December the 13th of 2015, Florida authorities carried out Operation Naughty Not Nice, aimed at cracking down on escort services. The investigation was led by the Polk County Sheriff's Office, and it resulted in the arrest of 33 clients, 50 escorts, and roughly a dozen others associated with the intercourse for money trade. Among those taken into custody was a 68-year-old Home Depot worker named David Marsh. He'd contacted an escort and solicited to be dominated by her. Towards that end, he rode his bicycle across Lakeland while dressed in a French-made outfit and wearing a chastity belt. Unbeknownst to him, the call girl with whom he'd arranged to meet up was an undercover officer. Footage from a hidden camera showed them in a room. After having discussed the particularities of their arrangement, the female officer told the bespectacled man, "Sounds good, let me get into character," adding, "I want you here on the floor and I'll be right back." Marsh obliged. As the undercover officer left the room, he was arrested shortly thereafter. Sheriff Grady Judd discussed Operation Naughty Not Nice during a press conference and presented reporters with a photo of Marsh in handcuffs. Judd told the press he rode a bike clear across Lakeland in his French-made outfit with a dog collar on. Marsh opted for the bike because he'd lost his license following a DUI arrest. Marsh, who'd been charged with soliciting escort services in the past, faced that charge once again. Number 4. Milan Chante Walker. On October the 23rd of 2014, Gregory John Hudson was found dead at a friend's townhouse in Varsity Lakes on Australia's Gold Coast. 57-year-old Hudson had been staying at the home after recently quitting his job in the mining industry. His friend found him lying naked and prone in an upstairs bedroom. His hands were loosely tied behind his back with computer cables, and there was a sock in his mouth along with a D-shaped stiletto mark on his left buttock. Hudson's face was bruised and he appeared to have been beaten up. During the investigation that followed, it would emerge that prior to his death, the man had sought the services of 35-year-old escort Milan Chante Walker. She, working with accomplices Lee Field and Benjamin Gabriel, hatched a plan to rob him after he'd made contact with her. 24-year-old Gabriel was reported as being Walker's pimp and driver. After arriving at the Varsity Lakes address, Walker distracted Hudson with domination-type intimate relations while the men raided the home. Hudson succumbed to heart failure at some point during the incident. The conspiring trio fled the home, and in the days that followed, Gabriel donned female Muslim clothing and used Hudson's bank cards to withdraw money from his account. In November, Walker, Field, and Gabriel were taken into custody on manslaughter and robbery charges. In the fall of 2017, they received their sentences at the Brisbane Supreme Court. Field was given a 2-year and 7-month sentence for armed robbery in company and burglary. Gabriel was handed 3.5 years behind bars for the same offenses and others of stealing. Both men walked free due to time served. Walker was convicted of manslaughter and jailed for 5 years and 9 months. Justice Glenn Martin said that Hudson's death was an exceptional case because his heart was basically a time bomb. Hudson had an enlarged heart and a fatal dose of cocaine in his system when he passed away. Martin argued that the fetish intercourse in which he was engaged with Walker could have triggered his cardiac arrhythmia. Number 3. Talisha Ferguson. On the 4th of July of 2020, Ronald Moore was passing through Las Vegas while on his way to Arizona to buy a house. He contacted 22-year-old escort Talisha Ferguson from an ad and picked her up in the downtown area near the El Cortez Hotel Casino. They then went to his room at the Westgate Hotel Casino, where Ferguson agreed to have intercourse with Moore in exchange for $100. At some point during the rendezvous, Moore boasted that he was carrying $90,000 for the purchase of a home. Ferguson asked to take a look at the cash, claiming that she'd never seen that much money in person. Moore agreed and pulled the stacks out of a brown paper bag. He and Ferguson then had intercourse. Afterwards, the woman complained of stomach pain and went to the bathroom. Moore fell asleep for several hours, and when he woke up, Ferguson was gone. He checked the paper bag and found that the money was missing as well. The man alerted Las Vegas police. Surveillance footage showed Moore and Ferguson arriving at the hotel together. The latter was recorded leaving alone, with her purse visibly heavier than when she arrived. She walked at a fast pace and fled the area in a Lincoln Navigator. Moore was reportedly unable to pick Ferguson out of a photo lineup, but investigators identified her based on the video evidence, her phone number, and her escort ads. A police investigator posed as a client and set up a meeting with Ferguson, whereupon she was arrested. The woman acknowledged being at the Westgate and in Moore's hotel room, but maintained that she hadn't taken his cash. It remained unclear if the man ever recovered the money. Today's topic was requested by Elizabeth Abersaw 367, Victor Alexander 2411, and Superman 00221. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Ashleigh Hunt. On May the 10th of 2022, Ashleigh Hunt went to the home of a pensioner in his late 60s in Hull, England. The man had known 24-year-old Hunt for several years and reportedly held a deluded belief that they were in a loving relationship. Hunt, who was addicted to heroin and crack cocaine, worked as an escort and was regularly seeing the 69-year-old in that capacity. In January of 2021, she took the pensioner's wallet during a struggle in which she used a male accomplice as muscle. She was arrested and convicted in connection to that incident, but the elderly victim continued seeing her in the aftermath. The man opened his door on the evening of May the 10th, believing that Hunt was alone. In the moments that followed, a man who Hunt later identified as 38-year-old James Fenwick suddenly appeared behind her. They forced the pensioner into a bedroom where he was beaten mercilessly. The victim suffered a fractured cheekbone and eye socket. His son, who was aware of his involvement with Hunt, received a message from his phone that read, "What's my customer number?" The son suspected from the wording that Hunt was behind it. During a phone call that followed, someone repeated the question while faking a frail elderly man's voice and pretending to be the pensioner. The son saw through the ruse, whereupon the voice said, "What's his customer number? I have got a knife to his throat." The authorities were alerted and they went to the address where they forced entry and found the badly beaten pensioner asleep in his bed. An ambulance was called and he recovered after receiving treatment at the Hull Royal Infirmary. The victim told the police that Hunt and a man he didn't know had entered his home, but couldn't remember who had attacked him. He said that he saw no point in calling the police. In spite of the injuries he'd sustained during the beating, he chose to go to sleep. Hunt and Fenwick were later arrested at a woman's apartment, and a phone belonging to the victim was found with them. Fenwick denied being anywhere near the elderly man's home. Hunt acknowledged that she was at the pensioner's residence, but pointed to Fenwick as the perpetrator of the assault and robbery, claiming that she was too afraid to try and stop him. The man maintained his innocence, adding that he was at the Westbourne House hostel at the time of the attack, before going into town to meet his daughter. Fenwick said that he was in an intimate relationship with Hunt, even though he knew she was an escort, and that she was trying to get him in trouble because she didn't want to be with him anymore. Hunt and Fenwick pleaded not guilty to causing grievous bodily harm, blackmail, and robbery. In the trial that followed, Fenwick was cleared of all charges while Hunt was found guilty of robbery and causing grievous bodily harm. The escort had convictions for 19 prior offenses, including multiple assaults. She was jailed for 8 years, with the judge noting that it was the second time she targeted the pensioner. Stick around after number 1 if you haven't yet seen our release about when mixing business and pleasure goes wrong. That's coming up right after. Number 1. Sienna Fox. In April of 2016, an Australian transgender escort was labelled a danger to the community and denied bail in Perth Magistrates Court after she was arrested for infecting a former client with HIV. 39-year-old Sienna Fox, who was born Clayton Palmer, was ordered to remain incarcerated at the male Casuarina prison. Fox was diagnosed with HIV in August of 2014 and informed by medical staff of her obligations to notify her future intimate partners. She refused to accept her condition and continued working as an escort, advertising her services on a transgender escort website. When the unnamed victim contacted Fox, She assured him that she had a clean bill of health. They went on to have a number of unprotected intimate encounters in 2014 and 2015. When the client learned that he was HIV positive, he confronted Fox, but she fled Perth. The man consequently alerted the authorities. Fox resumed her activity as an escort after moving to Sydney. Law enforcement tracked her down to the Surrey Hills Hotel and arrested her as she was waiting for a client. Fox, who was charged with causing grievous bodily harm, was extradited from New South Wales. In February of 2016, she denied any wrongdoing, claiming that no one ever told her she had HIV, and went to trial. It took a jury only 4 hours to find her guilty. She was jailed for 6 years in early 2018, but the sentence was cut down to 4 years on appeal. While employed at HMP Oakwood in Staffordshire, England, 27-year-old prison officer Katie Loxton became romantically involved with inmate Adam Higgs. The illicit relationship lasted for roughly 6 months leading up to Loxton's arrest. On January the 27th of 2022, prison staff had alerted law enforcement after noticing that the woman was spending a significant amount of time on Higgs's block. The couple would communicate through a cell phone that the inmate had hidden in his cell. Investigators found that they'd been able to manipulate the security measures of the prison telephony system to hide their relationship from officers and inmates. Throughout their tryst, they'd spoken on the phone for more than 380 hours in 3,451 different calls, with many of them being of an intimate nature. Following Loxton's arrest, the police also found 3 handwritten letters from Higgs at the woman's home. Loxton admitted misconduct in a public office and was jailed for 12 months in August of 2023. The pair also pleaded guilty to transmitting or causing the transmission of an image or sound by electronic means from within a prison, and Higgs was handed an 8-month sentence for having the contraband cell phone. Number 8. Makana Milo. Hawaii woman Makana Milo was put on probation after admitting to stealing a luxury handbag from a Neiman Marcus in 2014. On July the 22nd of 2016, the transgender woman was carrying out a community service order at a park in Honolulu in exchange for having her criminal record expunged. On what was her 4th day on the job, Milo secretly recorded her supervisor on Facebook Live as he made advances towards her. The live-streamed series covered roughly 30 minutes of conversation, during which the supervisor, 47-year-old Harold Villanueva Jr., spoke to Milo inappropriately as he drove her around the park grounds in his truck. He was heard bragging about community service trysts, which included one young mother to whom Villanueva referred to as the best I had in a long time. He told Milo that she could leave early in exchange for performing intimate favors. 21-year-old Milo also reported that the supervisor had tried to hold her hand in addition to pinching and slapping her buttocks while she was cleaning park bathrooms. The footage went viral in the aftermath, and Milo also tagged the Honolulu Police Department in her posts, leading to Villanueva's arrest for 4th-degree assault. Milo subsequently took the videos down because she faced backlash from online users who accused her of egging the man on. Milo, however, justified her actions by saying that she was fearful for her safety and of not completing her court-ordered service, and thus chose to pretend that she was going along with Villanueva's propositions. Number 7. Roxanne Walker. In 2021, prison officer Roxanne Walker started working at HMP Berwick in Wrexham, North Wales. Between May and October of that year, colleagues became concerned that she was often in the presence of and inappropriately close to inmate Daniel Carter. Walker, who was married at the time, had told other staff members that Carter was her type, and on one occasion, she was captured on CCTV stroking his arm and laughing while they were speaking closely. After she was reported, Walker was questioned during a support meeting in August, but insisted that while it looked dodgy, her relationship with Carter was purely platonic. When the inmate's use of the prison's phone system was investigated, it emerged that he'd added a contact Leanna Baker to his list, and the name would subsequently be proven to have been an alias for Walker. The authorities found that there'd been numerous calls made between them, in which they'd engaged in explicit conversations and talked about going away together. During the investigation, Carter was moved to HMP Cardiff, but the calls between him and Walker continued. The woman would eventually tell the police, "I've made a mistake. I've fallen in love with Daniel Carter. It's completely wrong." She was arrested, and at her home, officers found cannabis, which they determined was for personal use. Walker was the 18th guard to have been fired or arrested over developing relationships with inmates at Berwyn, contributing to the facility's reputation as Britain's cushiest jail. During the legal proceedings that followed, her attorney proposed that she'd been manipulated by Carter. The argument was that she'd recently been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, with experts assessing her as kind-hearted and caring but naive. In the spring of 2023, Walker received a prison sentence of 9 months, suspended for 2 years, and was ordered to perform 200 hours of unpaid work. Number 6. Jamie Melton. In the fall of 2022, a teacher at a private school in Tampa, Florida, was arrested for having relations with a student. 42-year-old Jamie Melton taught language and literature for the 10th and 11th grade at Carrollwood Day School, where tuition was a reported $20,000 per year. She invited the student to her home while her wife was out of town on September the 9th of 2022. They reportedly had relations on the teacher's bed and on her couch. Melton was friends with the victim's father, who subsequently discovered the illicit tryst and informed her wife before reporting her to the authorities. Melton had instructed the victim to delete their messages, but investigators were able to recover some which seemingly confirmed the relationship. In one message, Melton said she was hungry, and when asked by the student what she wanted to eat, replied, "You." After they'd been together, the victim also received a message from the teacher which read, "I'm falling asleep where we shared our intimacy." Melton was taken to Hillsborough County Jail and held without bond on a battery charge. Sheriff Chad Chronister condemned the woman's actions in a statement, saying she'd violated the trust which the community had placed in her. Number 5. Tishania Love Brewster. A 39-year-old correction officer at Downstate Correctional Facility in Fishkill, New York, was arrested in February of 2013 after it was discovered that she'd been intimate with an inmate. Brewster had worked at the prison for roughly 7 years, and it was suspected that she'd been involved with the man since 2010. They'd allegedly meet in his cell block during the officer's shifts, and at the time of her arrest, Brewster was 6 months pregnant with the inmate's child. In addition to official misconduct, the woman was charged with felony abuse due to the fact that inmates couldn't legally consent to intercourse. Number 4. Ravi Sathivayan. Australian man Ravi Sathivayan was dubbed Australia's sleaziest boss by the media in 2015 after he'd allegedly harassed multiple female employees and sent them messages which were characterized as lewd and disturbing. Sathivayan was the manager of Brisbane panel beater business Underwood Accord Bodyworks, and all of his victims were young blonde women. Some of the messages he'd sent them read, "I will kiss your body and make you happy," "You will drive me mad," or "I can't resist that beautiful body." The women spoke to reports from A Current Affair and revealed troubling details about their former manager's behavior. 18-year-old Chloe worked at the company as a receptionist for roughly a month and quit after being relentlessly pursued by Sathivayan, whom she'd repeatedly turned down. While rejecting his advances, Chloe reminded the father of 2 that she was only 18. Sathivayan nevertheless sent her messages that included ordering her, "You have to be my princess," and asking her to be his personal exotic dancer. The man would also touch Chloe inappropriately, try to kiss her, and ask her to sleep over at his house. Another of the women who'd come forward, 19-year-old Caitlin, reported similarly disturbing behavior, highlighting that Sathavian had sent a crude message to her boyfriend claiming that he'd had relations with her in a car and that staff members had filmed them in the act. Much like the other victims, 20-year-old Amber, who'd worked at the company for 3 weeks, claimed that she'd been left traumatized by her interaction with Sathavian. Looking back on the experience, Amber said, "You're just thinking about when's the next stroke or touch." Sathavian became the focus of an investigation by Queensland police, but upon being interviewed by a Current Affair reporter, he vehemently denied making anyone feel uncomfortable. Number 3. Russell Thorne, Christopher Bevan, and Simon Dykes. Started in 2006 and leading up to 2010, a prison governor and 2 prison officers were determined to have been at the center of what was deemed as a culture of corruption at Downview Women's Prison in Surrey, England. Governor Russell Thorne, aged 41 at the time of his trial in 2011, was involved in an intimate relationship with a female inmate for roughly 3 years. The unnamed woman and Thorne became close shortly after she'd arrived at the prison in July of 2006. The pair began flirting and Thorne eventually moved the woman to a wing of the prison where she enjoyed more freedom and was closer to him. Their physical relationship progressed from kissing to intercourse after Thorne had reportedly called the woman into his office and told her, "Open your legs, that's an order." They continued to have relations, and Thorne would give his lover various gifts and alcohol, in addition to granting her favors such as weekend releases. When the woman noticed that another inmate had piqued Thorne's interest, she arranged for her to join them in their tryst. Dykes was accused of having intercourse with 3 prisoners, touching a 4th and performing an intimate act on himself outside another inmate's cell. Bevan was also reported to have been involved with 2 female inmates. The relations that had occurred between the prison staff and inmates were reported to have been consensual in nature, but were partly based on the women getting various perks in exchange. Thorne, Bevan and Dykes were arrested and charged with multiple counts each of misconduct in public office, to which they pleaded not guilty. Updates on their cases indicated that Bevan, while heavily intoxicated, fell to his death at his home in Leith Towers, Grange Vale. The accident occurred on June the 6th of 2011, which was the first day of his trial. Thorne was jailed for 5 years, while Dykes faced a retrial as a jury failed to agree on a verdict. Number 2. David Thomas Solomon. While he was a teacher's aide at Falkville High in Alabama, Huntsville man David Thomas Solomon was accused of sleeping with a teenage student in the fall of 2015. Solomon, who was at the time in his mid-20s, and the student had been talking on Facebook for several weeks before she went to his father's home in Hartselle. They were reported to have had intercourse and deviate intercourse at the residence. Within several days, school officials and the police found out about the illicit relations. Falkville police questioned Solomon at his home, and he reportedly confessed to officers at the scene. Solomon's contract with the school was terminated in the incident's aftermath, and he was held at Morgan County Jail on a $5,000 bond. Number 1. Autumn Wedgeworth. In the summer of 2014, East Mississippi Correctional Facility employee Autumn Wedgeworth was arrested for allegedly having intercourse with an inmate. The illicit affair involving the unnamed prisoner and the 33-year-old Meridian woman was discovered and reported by the Management and Training Corporation. The Lauderdale County Sheriff's Department provided no further information on the circumstances of the relationship or on how it had come to light. Wedgeworth was consequently charged with felony battery. She secured a $10,000 bond and was released from the Lauderdale County Detention Facility pending the legal proceedings into her case. Thanks for watching. Would you rather work only nights for double your current pay or work half of your current hours for the same pay? Let us know in the comments section below.